the other notable fact from their early times is that they sold. It's just amazing. The single that they did that was Academy Fight Song and Max Ernst. It's sold out. It's 7,500 copy pressing in weeks. Which is just like, you got to think, there's like 7,000 kids running around in Boston being like, this is the shit. Like,
yes.
we just did Rick Rubin, and they were talking about I'm not going to be able to remember it now, but some very early hip hop record that they pressed that was like, it sold like 100,000 copies in New York City, which is like.
Tila Rock, It's Yours, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's we're in such stream zone now of just like the idea, and especially it's always like millions of streams, like fractions of cents from Spotify, but like the idea that there is like 100,000 like copies or like 7,500 copies of a single physically that are like making it around Boston. I don't know, just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, definitely like the biggest like change in music in terms of like being a fan in terms of like the 80s, 90s. And now is just the idea of scarcity of music being like such like, but to hear Burma, you had to be in the right place at the right time. To read these fanzines, to even find out that these fanzines existed, you had to have, like you said, Molly, the music friend. Like I had a fanzine friend. Like my friend Jane, who was like Burma were her favorite band, and she would say, forced exposure. You would love this magazine, or like, this scene, that scene. You had to have a friend passing those on. My friend Jane, by the way, I have to point out this. She was in my French class, freshman year of college, and like did not know each other, and like did not, communicate at all. And once we were asking in French, my French has gone a little bit. So, but it's the question like, what is your favorite band? Like, and she said Mission of Burma, and I was like, what? Fuck, like it's funny because she said that in French. I'm sorry, I used profanity.
Le Mission de Burma.
Yeah. But it was the kind of thing where like the teachers decided like, who had to musique préferée, and just she said Burma, like afterwards, I was like, excuse me, did you say Mission of Burma? It was so mind blowing to encounter a stranger in college who had already not just heard this band, but like loved them, and it turned out, she'd seen them so many times, and it was a thing where. Like having that friend who would pass music on to you or, make you tapes or pass zines on to you, that was the only way for information to travel from one person to the next. And so, so it's funny that to think of Academy Fight Song and Max Ernst as like that single totally selling out. I taped those songs off the radio. I did not have my hands on one of those scarce copies, but it's so funny that the idea of music as scarcity is such a lost concept, and I wouldn't even want like new music fans now to incorporate that kind of economy. No. I totally don't think it added romance or coolness or anything to music. I think it's the opposite. I like that everybody can hear stuff now if you just tell them about it, but it's so funny that like Burma was something, it was like a word of mouth thing, and people often heard about the band for years even before they got to hear it. So like, just, like even people who may have heard Academy Fight Song, like on a sampler or something, it was like, wait till you hear the flip side, Max Ernst, and it was the kind of thing where like they were that kind of band that had that kind of hardcore bass. I love the idea that they sold out that entire single, like in Boston. It was kind of a non-fungible token. But it was a record. Like,
oh my god!
And we'll get into this, but it is funny that they can be like, there is such a dichotomy where you can be so massively for a band of that level successful regionally, and then just never be able to translate it to something else. But we should move forward with their bio to get to that part.
Sell out 7,500 copies. Okay, great. Let's get some more going. No, it can't. Just like the distribution, was kind of impossible. Like they're talking in the book about, even if you could get the album distributed to record stores, sometimes they just simply wouldn't pay you. So just like the business is like kind of not, there's no infrastructure at all. Meanwhile, like the idea of going national is like not quite a thing yet. And, mainstream magazines are not really covering this kind of music consistently. Another thing that they had as they were kind of like gaining a little bit of steam locally is that they were alienating people who went to see them live expecting to hear the sounds on their records, because when they did things live, it was much more, it sounds like it was just much more chaotic, much more raw, like much more just very loud. I guess it sounds like volume, even with Roger's hearing problem is that they just like cranked things like crazy and were playing around with like even the way that like the sound was moving around in the space.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, as we've talked about on like past episodes of this miniseries, like, when you buy a ticket to see a band and you think you're going to see one thing or you want to see one thing and something different happens, like that, you as the customer you're not going to be happy. And it's not necessarily the band's, especially a band like this, they're not going to be like, okay, yeah, let's pander. Let's do this. We've heard your feedback and we're taking it into consideration.
Yes. We thank you for, your call is important to us. Yes.
Right.